So, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for turning up to Instagram, the benefits of drinking shots. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Chivas Regal Scotch Whisky, our dear friends at Pernod Ricard UK for their financial support to ensure that this goes ahead, and of course for the committee at Tales of the Cocktail for thinking that this was a good idea to form a discussion. We do believe we have something very credible, and sincerely hope you agree. Consequence of this is that whatever happens over the next 90 minutes, I can assure you that the panel here have created some delicious drinks for you to enjoy. So, I guess about a year ago, I was about to embark on one of my trips, more of a journey really, and I wanted to understand how to take better photos on social media. And so I reached out to Addie, Chinn, and he came in to the office and he presented to me, and he showed me some ideas about how to really consider photography. And I guess what I've looked at from then on to here is that it's not just about taking photos and putting them on social media. It's how we look at our photos when we're creating cocktail books or even campaigns for flyers, posters, or just campaigns. And actually, once you start to consider what the drink looks like, you then start to think about the glassware or the vessel, you start to think about the occasion, and that can affect the ingredients as well. So for those of you who are creating menus and drinks and that sort of thing, I think it's really important to actually think about what the visual of the drink really looks like, because then it can play an important role into what goes into it. Unfortunately today, Addie will be talking a lot more about how to look at those things and how photography has changed and advertising has changed over the years that affects what we do today. So I guess without further ado, I should introduce the panel that we have. And ladies first, I'd like to introduce Tara Garnell. Tara has been working now full-time as a drink stylist. She has over a decade's hospitality experience, which helps inform her visual aesthetic. She works concurrently across the two disciplines and has done for the last 5 years, and she's styled a wide range of still photography and video shoots across the drinks industry and lifestyle brands. I have had the pleasure to work with Tara on several projects and have instilled a confidence in her approach to styling, working closely with her on the photographic briefs. Now, first person we have is Addie Burgess. Addie has over 20 years' experience in the hospitality world, covering everything from high street chain restaurants and bars, right the way up to building an empire of successful venues that he has today. He spent 2 years in New York bartending at the famous Pegu Club from 2006-2007, and then returned in 2008, working at a couple of high-profile bars before opening up his dream, Happiness Forgets, in Hoxton Square, East London. Since opening Happiness Forgets, he's also opened his second bar, Original Sin, in the neighborhood of Stoke Newington in northeast London. And now he's ventured into the world of restaurants, acquiring the site directly above Happiness Forgets, I believe an already respected modern classic called Petit Pois. Next, we have Agostino Perrone. Agostino Perrone is an Italian bartender who realized his dream, discovering the beauty of different cultures, keeping records with his camera through working in hospitality. Ago likes to translate his experiences and inspirations into a liquid story, served in a glass for his guests. He's at the helm of the famous Connaught Bar in London, where he strives for creativity as part of his guests' experience, keeping the elegance and personalized service associated with a luxury five-star hotel. I asked Ago to name his favorite cocktail. Negroni. Don't forget, I'm Italian. Ago says the Negroni has sweet, spicy, calming, and energizing properties all in one. Therefore, it's the perfect cocktail for all kinds of occasions, moments of the day, moods, and needs. Alex, I guess a man who requires little introduction. Alex Kratena is the founder of Pour, or P-O-U-R, P-Hour. How do you pronounce it, Alex? Pour. It's just Pour. It's Pour. And he's a former head bartender of the Artesian at the Langham Hotel in London, which was recognized as #1 for 4 consecutive years in the world's 50 best bars. When not tending bar, Alex travels the globe developing new products, cocktails, and marketing strategies for some of the most recognized brands in the industry, and regularly appears as a keynote speaker at major industry conventions. Alex left the Artesian in November 2015 to pursue his dream of a new bar project with Simone Caporale and Monica Berg. I asked Alex what his favorite drink was, and he said it's the next most delicious drink I have. If ever there was a forward-thinking bartender, it was Alex. And then we have Mr. Addie Chinn, who I've mentioned already. Addie is a London-based beverage and still life photographer. Before all this, he worked as a bartender, a writer, a brand strategist, not all at the same time, before bringing it all together, taking pretty pictures of pretty drinks for a living, and then drinking them. Addie's guilty pleasure cocktail would be a shot of green chartreuse and an even colder beer. Finally, me. My name's Max Warner. I'm the international brand ambassador for Chivas. I think the best way to describe me is that I am a communicator, a host, and a designer. I spend most of my time when I'm on planes thinking and dreaming. It may have something to do with breathing recycled air. Who knows? I'm most impressed by consistent and honest hospitality. I embody the style of my brand, and I offer my audience the generosity of spirit through events, building brotherhood within the bartending community. I've worked for over 12 years promoting Scotch whisky and its relevance to consumers and bartenders, and I'm thrilled that Tales of the Cocktail has decided to bring this marvelous festival to the capital of Scotch whisky land, Edinburgh. I do really enjoy a very well-made cosmopolitan. So that's really the introduction to my panel. So for those of you that didn't know who they are, now you do. The way that this is going to work is that Addie in a short while is going to take us through a lot of the background behind drinks photography and give you guys some tips. I think what we'd like for you to leave with today is a better understanding about how to consider what drinks photography is and how to use it better. There will be a point throughout where we will be asking you if you have any questions at all. So please feel free to ask the panel or myself anything that you want. And then at the end of the session, for those of you that have a chance to stick around for a bit, we are actually going to do a live demonstration over on the left-hand side and photograph one of the drinks and give you some tips there. So where have we come from? Well, I think when we talk about drinks and we talk about photography, originally they weren't photographed, they were illustrated. I think the best example is the Savoy Cocktail Book, which I'm sure some of us have read or have copies of, I would hope, where it was really about evoking the style of the drink and the cup. Then we moved on from the 1930s into the 1980s, where things became a little bit more neon, a little bit more exciting. There have been times, not so recently, I guess, through my career, where I've actually gone to cocktail competitions and almost every drink has been blue. I think that was one of those kind of signifiers of a cocktail, probably denoted through the 80s. I guess back in, I think it was 2000, I was working in a bar in London, and a gentleman came in to see me, actually a friend of mine from Japan, and he was telling me about this new thing that was happening in Japan where people were going into bars and they were drinking. And he said, yeah, and what we do is we phone up our friends and they come in and see us. But what we do is we send them photos of drinks from our phone. And this was in 2000. It sounded quite bizarre. And the first camera phone looked like that. And that's basically what they were doing. And I think time has come on a long way, whereby originally we had phones with cameras, and now we have cameras with phones. So I'd like to hand over now to Addie, who's going to take us through a lot more of the background behind the photography, a lot of the stuff that he's been researching and working on. And as he comes up to the stage, I'd like Ago, maybe, if you would just discuss and tell us what this first drink is.
The cocktail that you are drinking now, or you are about to drink, is a drink created for a corner bar menu. It's called Madame Pickford. Of course, the inspiration is because the Canadian-American actress Mary Pickford, famous in the silent movie era. We want to bring through a little bit the Cuban essence with the fashionable lifestyle that was at the time into the modern times. It's the Chivas 18 infused with the grilled pineapple, so you have the caramel sweetness coming through with the viscosity on the palate as well. There is Amaro Lucano infused with the cocoa beans, so you have aromas with a subtle dry finish on the palate, The dry finish is enhanced with pomegranate molasses to give more depth and bitterness, and a dash of maraschino. It's all mixed on cube ice, and is served in a quite strange vessels that we're going to show later, correct? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, to start, if I can get half of you to leave this room with your photography being 1% better, I'm a happy man. So it's only slightly better doing photography. Don't worry, this isn't a degree, this isn't a course. I'm going to go through this in about 10 minutes. I like to talk quickly. If I go too fast, someone stop me. So the basis of this, there are two premises that I'm going to base all of this on. Number one, social media is free advertising, right? Like, why do we need to put better drink photos up there? Social media used to be about social and media. Now it's less social, now it's much more media. If you think of a classic advert, it's an ad campaign with a witty one-liner, which is basically what every single post on Instagram is. So every post you do is an advert. So think of it like that. If you're a bartender, you're advertising the drinks you make because maybe a future bar manager is going to come and hire you based on that. If you're a bar operator, you want more consumers to come down. It's free PR. You know, this is the true democratization of advertising. So why wouldn't you use it? Premise number two, you spend, as the bar industry, an inordinate number of hours making drinks that taste fantastic. Part of that is making drinks that look fantastic. Why would you then put a very shit representation of that fantastic-looking drink online? Why would you not put the best photo you can of your amazing-looking, amazing-tasting drink? The best way to do it, obviously, is hire a professional photographer, and I will turn up with a fantastic stylist and lots of lighting, and we'll take amazing photos for you. And many bars do that. I've worked with Ali quite a lot. I've worked with Ago once, very briefly. Of course, you can't always do that. So this is the whole point of this bit of the talk is just using your phone. Can you take better photographs, please? I mean, that's the plan. Less of these. These are actually albums, but there's still no excuse, okay? So who am I? Very quickly, I have photographed 7 or 8 cocktail books, including these, both of Tony's books, Experimental Cocktail Club book, all of Tristan's books, Tony's Drink Factory magazine. I've been doing this full-time for about 5 years. I think that's all right for 5 years. I shoot images like these. You know, if you ask me what my style is, I say lately it's settling to these kind of images. I also shoot a lot of high-color stuff. Maybe if there's time later, we can discuss visual trends in drink photography, because there's a shift, just as there's a shift in drinks. You know, all used to be a lot of this dark storytelling and wood. These are from other people's books. And now I think we're moving into a lot more high-color, a lot more punch. Things like these for Merchant Heart in the bottom, or Termini in the top, or Bonpas and Par in the top left. Fun and bright and complex. And it's not just drinks. I shoot other stuff, like honey. Don't know why that's in there. And some more stuff, including this cocktail lovers image on the bottom there. They're over there. Some stuff for Nightjar on the top. That's on the right. That's from one of Tony's books. And then big shout to the Drink Up team for London Cocktail Week and Wine Week and London Beer Week for commissioning an ongoing series of images that I think are really helping to develop this kind of image, that aesthetic that I think is really good at the moment, really fun, really bright, right? We're a bit bored of dark, moody Manhattans on dark, moody tables with dark, moody. And why can we not have beer pong and lipstick and wine? Because it's fun. I'm going to run you through a brief history of drink imagery, because I think the history of drink imagery runs parallel to the history of drinks. There's a lot of correlations between the two, and I think it's always important to know where things came from to know where things are going to go. So just to put things in context, I think Coke is a great ballpark for if you're looking at how things have been represented over the last 70 years. This illustration in the 1950s image on your left, a lot of the aesthetic rules that they use are the same things you expect to see in a photograph now. The lighting, the hands, we'll talk about all those in a minute. And then on the right, that's, you know, what is that, 60 odd years later. It's not a mile of difference. There's this interesting bubble between the 60s and the early 80s of really crap photography. And I'd argue that settles at the same time we have really crap drinks. I feel like it's hard to take a great photo of a shit drink with a bartender who doesn't give a damn and a brand that doesn't really care. It's easier to then re-embody all that. So you've got that Campari shot in the 60s. I'm not saying it's terrible, but the shot on the Jessica Alba, for arguable reasons, looks better. I mean, we will sidestep the slightly unpleasant sexism that goes with a lot of images from that current era. That's a topic for another discussion. But it's also interesting if you look at look at the shape of that image, that could be an illustration from the 1950s very easily. The way they've got her body to fit a perfect S, the way each of those drinks is in exactly the right position, the orange slices are exactly towards camera, the light, the shadow is very linear. You look how far Guinness has come. You think of those, when you think of a Guinness image, right, you think of the black and white horse riding through the waves. But look where they came from in the 60s. Now it's a Guinness and lobster, a whole lobster on a plate. And now it's all about mystery and drama and sexiness. So you can do a lot. It's the same product. Think about that. That's the exact same product, represented in two completely different ways. I think that's amazing. Bacardi. In the 1970s, you have slightly dodgy things like this Bacardi eggnog. And the photographer's obviously sort of gone, sorry, my brief is what? And put a weird doll reading things. And then you come forward, and now it's all about splashes and action, and that was a very 2010, sort of 2000s, first decade or two movement. With Chivas, look at the way the bottle on the contemporary images pops, that glow. So there's a technicality to drink photography that's emerged in the last 30, 40 years as well. And I'm definitely not the best in my industry by a long shot. There are many of my peers above me who have pioneered a lot of this work, and there's a technicality to the way they shoot things that is sometimes breathtaking. You're talking of 10, 20 lights, you're talking of teams of dozens sometimes to get an image, and sometimes it's one dude with 2 lights in a bar. That's usually me. Bailey's is interesting. I'm not sure what they were visually thinking on that 70s image, because it just says to me it's a flat drink of a milky substance. That sounded weird. And then in the 2010s, it's all like woman made of liquid dancing out of cup. But again, that's the same product. So the way you shoot things is really important. But also, hopefully, you're starting to get the idea that I'd like you to stop taking adverts for granted. When you look at an image, maybe it's the cynic in me, but what are they trying to get you to feel? And what are they trying to get you to think? And how have they made that happen? And therefore, when you go and take a photo, you do the same process in reverse. What do I want my audience to feel? What do I want my audience to think? How can I make that happen? Enough that. That's your art history over. Right, I would argue that when you're shooting your own drinks, there's 3 styles of representation of your drinks. Still life, which is objects, props. Lifestyle, which uses humans, or like hands and heads, we'll get into that. Or abstract and minimal. There are obviously more, and obviously those are very crass generalizations, but I think they'll help. So the first one is still life. It's the classic drink shot, right? You use bar props. You use that jug, that jigger, the strainer, the bit, and you arrange it around it. I mean, if there's time later, again, Tara can talk about, you always style in most of these rules because you use them in garnishes. You style in odd numbers. You never put the 2 berries with the straw in the middle that looks terrifyingly phallic. You do the 3 berries and you avoid all of that. You do the 5s. The human eye likes these numbers. We like 1s and 3s and 5s. We don't really like 2s and 4s and 6s. Everything's based on triangles. There's a very famous art director who says that everything is based on a series of triangles. Whether they're upside down, the right way around, whether you stack them. That classic thing if you've got the bottle in the middle with the glass, and then usually like the piece of fruit, and you've done 2 things with that. A, you've created a triangle that your eye looks down and likes, and the other thing you've created like a stepping hierarchy. Low object, medium-sized glass, big bottle. It works. So that's bar props to tell a story. Or you can describe the occasion and the event in which you would like your drink to be consumed. You make a Christmas drink, prop your little photo that you do on your phone with a few Christmas things, put a bauble and some fairy lights, and the people instantly get it. Are you drinking Colt 45 beer at a very fabulous spread of gourmet hot dogs and burgers and tin sardines? That wasn't a joke. Or is it, the beer trap is amazing. The bear trap on the beer trap. Or is it listening to Ella Fitzgerald and that Drambuie ad? And if you look at illustrations, it's the same. It's still a still life structure in that bottom right. You're telling a story. It's a lifestyle. Another really good thing you can do with props is you tell the story of the person who's drinking your drink. You tell the time when they're going to drink it. They've just got home. The dude on the right's drinking Chivas. He's just popped down the Wall Street Journal. He's just got home. His no doubt beautiful wife has handed him the glass, given the era of this image, full of crystal clear ice, poured him a large measure of Chivas, and it's that lovely moment. And it's return on investment. So first of all, they said the dude who's drinking this works in finance. He's just got home from a long day of work and he's drinking it. On the left, that's an image of lifesavers, which I believe are the precursor to polos, which is why they're in a ring shape. I don't know if that's true or not. But again, it's the same thing. It's sitting down at coffee with a vase, for some reason, with their doily on their table and they're drinking it. So you've told that occasion of who that person is. The other thing you can do is let people aspire to be something. So what you're doing is you're selling your drink to your audience member and telling them who they want to be. They want to be really rich and knowledgeable with their books and their mahogany tabletop. They want to be, it's Kentucky Tavern, they're in the South. They want violins and drapery and silver trays. We do this in bars anyway, right? When you go into a speakeasy, that's, you're upselling the environment, often through antiques and silverware and pewterware and gold bits and shiny bling. So why not put that in your photographs? You can be strange and do slightly odd props, like the floating billiard ball with the Kahlua glass on top. But you can, sports, people don't always drink in bars. Sometimes they drink outside. So when you shoot your drink, maybe you go into that nice little garden at the back of your your bar. You turn your golf tees into martini glasses, I don't know. The other thing you can do is use props to create a character. I think a good example is at the Townhouse in London. Their whole bar is a character. So you use one prop, the Gordon's ad. That says colonial Englishman abroad drinking gin and tonic. English invention for coping with the noonday sun. And they've translated that whole image. Imagine if you take that hat out, you've just got an image of a bottle and a glass on a tray. By including that one prop, you've told me who this character is. Interestingly, the Perrone ad is also a hat. And this tells the story of a bowler hat wearing Frenchman. Or you can use bizarre props like rainbows and lions. Lifestyle. So that's props, right? But then you start to bring people in. The human eye is naturally drawn to anything human. The minute you look at those images, the first thing you see isn't the bottle. That microsecond before you look at the bottle of beer, you spot the hands. Your eye naturally goes to the hands. And then it does this really fun thing where it follows where the fingers are pointing. Like, think about that Sistine Chapel where the fingers touch. It's the same thing. You look at the person, and then you follow the tip of the finger to the point where the artist wants your eye to go. And it's a natural human thing. So we can play with that. This is turn of the century Perrier ad. Now this is something just to show how we've always been doing this, right? I want you to keep an eye on the bottle and the hand, because if we skip to this advert, nothing has changed, right? They are all in exactly the same place. Hand, liquid, drink, bottle in the middle, extra prop on the other side. Right? So you do this, it works. We're following that liquid down. That shot on the right is a William Eggleston image. I think it was for Playboy in the 60s. And I was saying to one of the boys earlier, that's the image that made me want to be a drink photographer. It's still a kind of shit-looking drink, right? But somehow he's made it look really beautiful. I really want to be sat on that plane with the light streaming through. But again, if you take her hand out, it's not as good. And you put that hand in, and your eye looks to her hand. It's telling me who she is, first of all. And then my eye goes down into that drink, and then my eye comes down across the frame, following that refraction. Beautiful. Hands are also good because they can tell you who's drinking. They can tell you the occasion in which your drink is served, and that always helps. The other thing, even better than a hand to follow, is an eye to follow. Humans love faces. Like, talking to you all, my eye is naturally going face, 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 face. I'm not looking like bottle of water, object on the table. You get drawn to immediately. And then, just as your head follows fingers, your head follows eyes. So if you take a photo of somebody looking at a drink, my brain as the audience looks at their face, follows their eyes, goes to the drink, right? If you look at the image on the left, the first thing you look at is the two girls. Again, let's not talk about sexism yet. We'll do that in another talk. And then you follow their twin vision, and their gaze goes straight to those nice bottle of Cokes on the edge of the frame. They're not held in any center position. Those Cokes are almost like an afterthought of that image, right? But you look at them, and then you look where they're looking. And then the guy on the right, you catch his eye. And then your head goes down, and you realize that he's talking to you, and he's offering you a drink. That's really easy to replicate in a bar with your phone when you photograph your drinks. Break that fourth wall, have him talk to you, offer your drink to your audience. This is the fun drink, set in the 50s, shot very recently for Bacardi. Now, your head, as you look at that image, your eyes naturally do this weird sort of ping-pong thing. Like you're watching a table match, you sort of watch when I look at it anyway, I usually start with like the girl on the left with the camera, or the guy slightly to the left holding a drink. And then he's looking up at the girl with the sunglasses who's looking at me, which makes me look at the woman who's looking in the spotty dress, which makes me look over to the right to the waitress, and then I realize it's a Bacardi advert. Really, genius. And subtle. Doesn't have to be in your face. That one's harder to do on your phone, sure. But the logic is still there. Guys, can you all get together? It's got this great idea. Eyes down, 10 degrees. But, it's all doable. That's probably, I'm guessing that's composited of many, many images as well, just to get everyone in exactly the right place. And every time I look at it, I notice someone, like I never noticed the slightly creepy dude in the back left at the top, who looks like he's wandered in from another advert. He's great. I'd never noticed that before. Right. So the other thing you can do is you can just take a photograph of your audience, and sometimes it's often illusory, right? It's an illusion. It's magic. You want to be the guy in the image on the left who's obviously told something so funny that even the waiter wants to listen in on his joke, and he's cool. Therefore, Kinsey is cool. Or you're the slightly creepy mum who likes to drink Jägermeister. What was funny was I'd already prepped this presentation, and Jörg Meyer was online, and he was saying something about Jaeger, and everyone kept posting this is a whole series of images. I didn't realize this was a big, famous campaign. And there's one that looks like a kid who's very underage drinking Jaeger, but I thought I shouldn't include that one. This is interesting. So these are both for Schlitz. Same beer, same era. Two very different demographics. So they're telling you who should drink that beer on what occasion. You've got the guy on the right with the nicest looking BLT I've ever seen in the world, who's in a crisp shirt, but is clearly loving that beer on a hot day. Everything about that red in the background, the red of his shirt, like he's probably just mowed his lawn in the suburbs in 1950s America with a white picket fence, drinking his beer with real gusto, right? Masculine, clean, crisp. Or you've got the woman on the left, who, despite her pout, has got the most elegant hair I've ever seen, with a beautiful crystal glass. Notice the neat little line reflections on the side of the glass, which are exactly the same ones we saw in the Coke illustration at the very beginning. That's how we're told, that's how our brain knows it's a glass. It's very interesting. But two different people. You can tell stories. You're the cool hipster Bacardi trumpet player, or it makes you want to be there, that Malibu advert. Every time I see that ad, I want to be reaching out for that Malibu, which is not a sentence I say very often. So Seagram's did a series of campaigns that kind of defined their real audience, which I thought was quite interesting. These were in the 70s, obviously, didn't need to say that. But it's nice, these are like who they really think drink their drinks. And they get to include like a little recipe in the bottom. Again, this may as well be an Instagram post, right? These are real people. I like, is it the one on the left that's got, they call it a French martini by throwing some cognac in there. Kind of like that. Or you bring the weirdest characters I've ever seen for adverts, like the Milwaukee Bear and the Rumplemint's busty lady riding a polar bear, which is from 1991, according to Google, which is slightly scary. Whereas the Milwaukee Bear is from 1942. There you go. But the idea is still there, regardless of how ridiculous it is. They've used that to embody what they think their brand is. And you can do this in your bar, like, maybe not literally, but you get an idea of who you can talk to. The third rep style you can do is abstract or minimal. And for this, we take out the props, we take out the people, and we just let things talk for themselves, often with a bit of abstract sense of humor. This is, I would say this is probably the latest of the styles of representations we're playing with. This is, I forget the photographer's name, Tim Humblesmith, maybe, for Harrods. It became quite a thing to have weird floating bottles pouring liquid out. That became a thing for a while. I don't know why. So the other thing you can do yourself, obviously you're not going to create a crazy set on your phone, but get really close. You can get amazing lenses that I use these quite a lot. They go on the front of your phone by a company called Moment. I think they're in the States. They're like $70 each, so they're not cheap. But there's a wide angle one. There's a long lens that I use. They also do a macro, which allows you to get right in there. If that's the kind of style you're interested in doing, it's an outlay of $70 for your bar, which is nothing. And you can the bubbles on the top of your drink, the ice cascading down the side of the bottle. Big thing, again, like we talked about, like late 90s, let the liquid move. That sense of movement. There's no people in there. There's no props. There's no lifestyle. It's just booze moving around. This I find interesting. So if you compare the two, the Coke advert on the left, I think is from the 50s. We were focused even then. They're talking about the way liquid moves. It kind of glorifies just the liquid, which is awesome. Again, just like the Baileys. That's a famous Bert Stern ad on the left. He flew to Egypt. It's all about clarity. And he's managed to translate clarity in his drink by just shooting something that's reflected in it. It's simple, right? No props. You can take humans out and allow machinery to talk to you. You can use crazy bright color. This is from Toilet Paper Magazine, which I recommend to everyone. You can let the bottle shape, the iconic Absolute adverts. Think about those ads. There were no drinks. It was just a bottle and something weird for all of those. And they changed the advertising game for alcohol. The last set of Jamboree campaign is also sort of quite a nice example. You can stack glances. So the shot on the left, that's something you can do in a bar. That's very easily replicable. Get glasses, make them do weird, strange things. Tell a story, have fun. Or you can remove all your context completely. I love the advert. The advert on the left, if you can't read it, says, if they run out of Lauenbrau, order champagne. I love that. And they haven't tried to be clever with it, other than the punchline. They've just got a picture of a glass of beer and a glass of champagne. That's it. Imagine in your bar, if you're taking liquids apart and you can have those two glasses side by side and you're telling a similar story, or the leaf. So that's a quick style recap. Think about those things when you go to take your photo. Do you want to do it without people, just a still life object? Do you want lifestyle, humans? Do you want abstract or minimal? Max, is that a good place to talk about the next drink?
Yeah, this is one from Alex. So Alex is going to tell us a little bit about this one.
It's a beautiful drink celebrating the wonderful floral notes of Chivas 18. And it blends the Chivas 18 with bee pollen, lavender, touch of gentian, and that's it, yeah. It's like almost like an old-fashioned.
Inspired by Scotland, right?
Inspired by the spring day in Scotland when Tales on Tour arrives.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, me again, very quickly. Right, so now it becomes applicable to you. How do you do this yourself? That's all studio stuff. That's all adverts. That's all theory. How do you do it yourself? So first thing, this is your process. And I want you to do this every time you take a photograph. Okay? These are my 7 steps. First is plan. All I mean by that is have an idea of what your photo is going to be before you start. Please do that. Don't go, oh, that's a nice drink. I'll just stick it in that corner and stick my phone in front of it, and I'm done. Which is how almost all of us take photos of drinks. I understand this. But if you want to do something a bit different, like say you're in your bar, you've worked out a new drink, you've been working on it and jigging it for a few months, you sort of got it down, and you want to put that photo on Instagram, come in a little bit early before your shift. First of all, when there's still light coming through a window, because we like light, and have an idea of what you're going to do. So that's your plan. Then you prep, and by that I mean make sure your glasses are clean, make sure you've got all the shit you want to put in the photograph ready, you're not wandering around after your drink's been poured. You know that thing about drink your drink while it's laughing at you? It applies to photographs. Take the photograph while the drink is laughing at you. Don't let it sit there for 10 minutes. Get everything ready. Do a quick test shot with your phone. The light's in place, the drinks are there, you haven't poured the liquid in, glasses are empty. Does that look shit hot? Yes, I'm amazing. Pour the drink in, take the photo. Now you're done. Best thing you can also do is take 2 or 3 photos from very, very slightly different angles. And then afterwards, have a little flick and see which one you like. Edit it. I'm happy to talk about apps later if anyone cares, what I use, what I don't use, what I recommend. And then post it online with a witty one-liner, okay? That, if you follow those little 7 steps, your drink shots are going to be much better. And it applies to everything. Sometimes, of course, you just see it. So this is how I plan a shot. I do this for most shots I take. I'll do a little line drawing that's probably about 1 inch by 1 inch. And write silly things around it like, fuck yes, this is going to be awesome. And then that becomes that. Okay? I've worked out where I want my shadows to fall. I've worked out where my highlights are. And it's just an idea in my head, and then I recreate it using a bit of light. Well, I mean, quite a lot of light, but you get it, I knew I wanted a box, I knew I wanted a drink, I knew it was going to be wine, I knew I wanted all those things to thing and a glass to kind of hang off the edge. That took an extra, like 15 seconds of brain power before you took the photo. Again, drink up. Nudge. Quick rules of thumb. I'll fly through these because I'm aware that I'm talking for a bit.
No, you're good.
We good?
You're good.
We're good. Right. As well as your 7 steps, which is how to take a photo, these 4 things are like the theory behind it. Every good photo has story, structure, style. If you have no light, you have no photo. When you take that photo, think geometrically. Human brain loves straight lines. I'll explain that. 4th, have a point of view. Don't just stick your phone in front of your glass and not consider it. And all that loops back into story, structure, and style. Okay? So I'll break these down quickly. Story, structure, style. Tell a story. What are they drinking? Who's drinking it? Where are they drinking it? When? What's the occasion? Why? You'll probably think about this when you make the drink anyway, so just carry it through. Have structure, and by that I mean think about the composition of your image, where the light's falling. Again, takes 2 seconds, and you do a lot of it on response, but have a think about that. Style is what you'll develop the more you do it. That's the little panache, that's the details, that's the lighting, what's like if you like hard shadows or light shadows, if you the little things that make you, the things that make Ago's drinks different to Alex's drinks, different to Ali's drinks, that should apply to your photographs as well. I see a lot of people go, I've got a DSLR, I've got a lens with an aperture of like f1.1, I like shallow depth of field, I'm going to go slightly on top and take it, and they all look identical. Doesn't mean they're bad, it means they're great, but what they're lacking for me is that style bit at the end. Or they've got a style, but it's the same style. And you only do this by trying it out. And the best thing about the internet is it's free, so you just stick it up there, get some feedback, try something different. Roll around until you get stuff, okay? The story on the right is a man who's about to leave, and that's that drink. That tells the story of like, is he a traveling salesman? I don't know. This was for Tony C, so I didn't, there's a story in there, and I just had to recreate it for him. The wine image on the left, it's about, on the one hand, it's about gender and wine. On the other hand, it's about going out, and it's genderless, and it's about wine. The one on the top, that weird one, top left, was for Bumpus and Parr, and they wanted a drink that was about mermaids. They made this weird installation. It was like you take a boat through a river and smoke and rocks. So we built like a meter-by-meter fake lake in the middle of the studio that I use. And I think we had something silly like 15 lights involved. There were like LEDs and all sorts of shit. It was great fun, and we didn't flood the place. But tell story, structure, and style, okay? No light, no photograph. Hopefully I can show this because I think they've just launched their menu. This is a fairly simple 3 or 4 light setup at Scar for their new menu in London. The image with the lights looks like this. The image with those lights turned off looks like this. If you have no light, you can't take a photograph. Please stop taking photos of drinks at 4 o'clock in the morning in a corner of a dark bar when you're slightly pissed because you think it looks good. If it really looks good, do it before your shift when there's light coming in somewhere and make a photograph, right? Otherwise, you end up with this. What was it we said? This is the best, imagine this is the best cocktail in the world with no light. No brainer, right? Photography literally means drawing with light. Quick light physics. This is how you see things. Light bounces off an object and goes into your eye, right? Light bounces off a thing and goes into your eye. This was like Saturday morning in Cambridge where someone had left their bottle of Coke and their bottle of Smirnoff. You can see where the shadows are because no light's falling there, and I can't see what's inside those shadows. Where the light is, because the light's gone through the trees and hit the thing, it bounces off, goes into my camera, and I see it. It's the same when that's a martini, by the way. It's the same when you photograph a drink. Light hits the drink and goes into your camera, or a Negroni. This was on holiday in Greece. The light bounces off that wall, goes through that drink, and goes into my eye. And you can see where the light's coming from. Here's another tip when you're looking at photos and you want to work out how they've done it. Look for shadows. Because wherever you see a shadow, that means there's a light at the other side of that. So if you're like, how did he light that crazy, amazing thing? It's like, look, first thing you do, it could be a portrait, a drink, doesn't matter. Look for a shadow, and then you can build backwards. Realistically, you don't always have the sun. You want a window. Side window light is a blessing. If you put a window next to a glass or a bottle, it will look great. There was nothing other than the fact that I walked in. Also, what I tend to do is I tend to look for light first. There's an annoying truism in photography, which is don't photograph things, photograph the way light hits things, which is kind of true. I see a bit of light, I get very excited, and then I look for a thing to put in that light. Like a sort of puppy given a treat. It's like, oh, that light looks amazing. What can go there? This was that case. It was a sitting in Sager and Wild on Hackney Road. The light looked great. We were on a shoot actually for a client for Okatoshin, and we popped that in, and it looked great. That wasn't the shot we used either. That was just my phone. Now, as you see in that last image, there's a lot of heavy shadow on the side of that bottle. Sometimes you don't want that, and that's a really easy fix. See where it says refill? That means reflector, and all that is will be a piece of white paper or a piece of silver paper, or even a piece of gold paper, depending on what you want to do. In your bar, those who stick around afterwards, if we get time and we do some photos, there's like a mini selection of props over there, and all the props Tara sourced from Tiger or Poundland, and all the lighting equipment I got from Maplin. Both of us, I think, probably spent under 50 quid. Just keep some of it in the bar. Like if you're a bar owner and you want people to take better photos, just invest in a nice little angle point spotlight, a bit of gold card, silver card, white card, some tracing paper to diffuse things, and just stick it in the office and let people play with it. So if it's too dark and you still can't see your garnish, add another bit of card. If you're in a restaurant, you kind of can't beat just an open menu. If it's dark on one side, you put a piece of paper on the other side and the light bounces around it. It's a very, very easy fix. However, sometimes you have too much light, and I also want you to think about that. The more you start doing it, you can also start taking away light. So we call this flagging. Use a big black piece of card, and you stop light coming in, which is how you get things like this. So this was one morning, I just made a nice espresso in my very nice cups in my old house. And in reality, the top part of that frame was actually flooded with light. And what I wanted was a little tunnel of light. So I just took a big black piece of A3 card that I had lying around before I went to work, and I put it in the way of half the window, and I moved it until that tunnel of light was the same width as my espresso cup. and I took a photo with my phone. So the sum spend of technology on that photograph was a piece of card that probably cost me somewhere in the region of £1. So you can add light and you can take it away. That's all I want you to think about. No light, no photograph. Sometimes, if you know how you get drinks, if a drink is opaque, it's probably more opaque, light doesn't really go through it. Light likes to bounce off the front if you guys are the camera. If you have a transparent drink, it's probably a bit more transparent, light likes to go through it. Best way you can do that, if you want to show off clarity, like that Bert Stern image of the martini in front of the pyramid, you want light to go through the glass. Okay? All you see there is that big light behind him, and what I get is how empty and bright that glass is. Would work amazingly with a martini as well. Another nice thing to do is have your window over off to a corner and bounce light back in. So in this case, where was I drinking this? Noble Rot, maybe? That light is coming from, see that gold arm in the top left? That's just a spotlight on the bar. And all that had happened was it was a bit dark on the front, so I used the menu to reflect to the front, and I just took a photo with the little Olympus camera I have with me. Okay? No light, no photograph. Brains are okay. You need a minute to sip something. Good. Rule number 3, compose geometrically. Right? The brain loves geometry. We love this shit. Straight lines make us happy. On all your phones and all your cameras, there will be a grid function. I know where it is on an Apple iPhone. I don't know where it is on anyone else's phone. Just stick it on. Please, like the second, if you do one thing from this, turn the fucking grid on your phone. Do you know how pissed off I get by people taking landscape photos and it's a bit like that? Or you photograph your drink and it's a bit like that. Not enough to be like brave and, oh, it's 45 degrees. Just like a little bit wonky. Because maybe you just couldn't be asked or you'd fallen over. I don't know. You just sort of
like your.
Stick the grid on, your glass goes straight, okay? We love things being in the middle of that straight line. So where those two lines intersect, oh, sweet. Symmetry. Wonderful symmetry. Makes me so happy. So on top of that, also nice is diagonals. We like diagonals as well. And what's good about diagonals is you can use leading lines to get people's eye into where you want them to look, right? So in this photo, that angle line coming from the mirror in the top right is telling you that I want you to look at my Negroni. Even better than 2s, and this is what the grid on your iPhone is, and this is actually what's on most cameras. Often you can choose between the 2. It's a rule of thirds, we call it. Split your frame into 3s. Okay, golden rectangle's even better, but that's slightly harder to explain. Rule of thirds, great rule of thumb. Switch this on. We like those lines. Because sometimes when you plonk a drink bang in the middle, there's no sense of what's important in the frame, right? It's just symmetrical. But if you use those lines, you're telling me these 2 pits off to the side look good. If you take either one of those glasses away, that image will actually be better. I was very drunk, so it didn't happen. Again, also, I was very drunk, and I managed to get thing bang on the rule of thirds, because I had the grid on my phone, okay? No excuse. I was a bit tipsy. Also notice backlighting. Notice how it affects the rosé on the left and doesn't affect the red wine on the right because it's opaque. That's what I was talking about with backlighting, right? Even better than lines, we call them intersect points. The bit where the thirds connect, that's like hotspot in a frame. People's eyes, we love it when, if you have a thing that you want to happen in your frame, pop it on one of those intersects. Here's a picture of Alastair Burgess pouring beer into a glass. Now, the reason your eye goes straight to that pour is because that's my rule of thirds on that frame. That's my intersect point. And then on top of that, I'm using these angles that are running off the sideboard to take you. I'm telling you, your eye comes in off the side of the frame, whichever you go in from left or right, and you go to that third point, boom, and it's like, I get what you want me to look at. It's not a great photograph, but you're looking at that beer way more than you're looking at that whiskey or Ali's sort of slightly stripy belly. It's beer into glass, okay? Simple. Put the fucking grid on your phone. Thank you very much. Rule number 4. Rule number 4, the last one. Have a point of view. It's really easy to take your phone and go like that. Or you've got the light looking good, you've put it in the right place, and you've gone, I'm done, yes. No, you're not. Have a point of view. There's 4 angles you can use. There's obviously more, and they blend into each other. First one is top down. Food photographers, especially paparazzi, the annoying people that take photos of their food in the restaurant before they eat it so it gets cold. They love that. It's really good at seeing into a dish. It's really good at seeing into a cup if light goes into it. It's not good for anything that's got a label on it, because your label's on the side. If you lie a bottle down, you get that really shitty bubble that rises to the top. It doesn't look great. People still do it. Not ideal. It's also not great if you've got closed containers containing dark liquid. You'll see an example in a minute of, even though I've just said that I did it. But if you've got a nice arrangement of, say you're doing an aperitif menu in your bar, you've got like some snacks, you've got your martini, lay them all out nice and neat. Also, here's a good bit of advice. Put your surface that you're shooting on the floor so you can actually get some height above it, rather than getting the rickety chair that you know you're going to fall off and sue the bar. Just put it on the floor, it's easier. Well, again, over there we've got bits of marble, bits of wood. Just pop them down on the floor, it's great. It's great for having lots of complex moving parts on a frame, if you can call apple and pears complex. This is an example of what I said didn't work. This is a glass of Vino Verde, like dark red wine, in a closed clay container, no lights going into it. I didn't move the light on the top. All I've done is moved my phone maybe ½ a centimeter in each direction, and it's reflected the light that's above it. Okay? That's it. So that's top down. Next one you do is the 3/4 view. This is kind of the classic. Right, boom. You get a classic elliptical ring on the top of your glass. This is good for 2 reasons. A, this is what your consumer, this is what your guest gets when they sit at the bar. They park themselves on the bar, you slid your martini over to them, they're looking at it 3/4. They're not looking at it on top, and they're not looking down at the same level, so this is what they get. So it's very good if you're working on a serve that has a context. Downside is it's kind of a bit boring. All right, it's a bit, but sometimes that's okay. Bad is also it doesn't show the height of the glass so well. It's another thing to think about when you're doing top down. If you've got a glass with a really pretty stem, or a really tall glass, sort of like a sling style or a highball, top down, you've lost that point. You can't see that. So think about your glass when you take that shot. So 3/4, here's another 3/4. Did that a long time ago. You can also very cheekily, if you look at the bauble on the left, you can see what my lighting setup is. That was very bad of me. Got to skip past that so you can't take notes. 3/4 there. It's sort of halfway between 3/4 and top, right? It feels a bit awkward, but you kind of get the point. Right, so the other options, straight on. I really like straight on because I like geometric things. I'm a bit OCD with photos, and I'm a bit of a nerd. So I like these things. This is a nice glass of wine for drink up. The nice thing about straight on image, that's very slightly raised, it's great for showing the contents of glass. It's great for showing layers in a drink. It's great for showing any kind of variation you've got going on in liquid. It's great to show the stem. The downside is, on top of all the other things you're moving around, you now have to think about your backdrop, right? You've got to have a wall behind you. So not only are you now thinking, Addie said, I've got to have the grid on, I've got the lights, I've got the props around. Now you're like, oh, shit, I've now also got to think about what's going on my wall. Like in here, we've got these lovely dado rails everywhere and radiators. That's gold dust for a shot like this. The geometry on those radiators is lovely. Look at the way the light slides through, rolls over the top, slides down the middle. I want to go and take photos. It's great for weird things. It's great. My coffee grinder broke in the middle of a shoot, and this is how I rigged that up. And I thought it was quite funny, so I put it on the set. It's great for showing height. If you've got a tall serve, side on. Like really, really show that off. This was at a wine event. I thought it was a really nice label. There was a random piece of card. You can see the 2 little light glimmers and the 2 different sets of shadows we've got. That's generally sort of bad form, having split shadows. It's kind of confusing for the eye. The heavy shadow is caused because I took an angle poise. So where you are now, I've got my bottle there, I've got a bit of curve, I've got my phone dead on, I've taken an angle poise light, like a spotlight over here, which is what's giving that shadow, but it made everything really dark on the other side. So I found a piece of mirror under the DJ booth. Obviously, there was a piece of mirror under the DJ booth. Guaranteed, if you can't find a piece of mirror, go to the DJ booth, just saying, and held it 45 degrees on the other side, and it filled in the shadow on the left of the bottle, and it also caused this really nice little extra shadow on the back wall. So again, that's a zero spend image. Spent nothing. The fourth and last angle you can do is a hero image, right? So I've started on top, I've gone down 3/4, I've gone straight on, all a bit flat. If you really want to be like, this drink is amazing, you hero it. You know the phrase, you put someone on a pedestal, you literally put your drink on a pedestal. If you raise it above you, it's got that sense of like 1950s sort of imagery, right? You're looking up at it. So all you do is, if that's your drink, you lower your camera very slightly below it. Notice also that the pointy lines of the teepee are leading straight to the middle of the image. Notice also that it's dead center because I used my fucking grid. Very slightly, you can bring things ever so slightly down and you get the same effect. This is for the new Ukulele bar in London. It's not quite dead on, it's very slightly down, which allows you to get a bit more of the backdrop, which sort of heroes the image. This was at the launch of Distillery. I was slightly drunk, but it's, again, slightly lower. Gives that sense of hero. All the light, as you can see, is coming from that spotlight over on the side. So takeaways. That's my spiel, though. So here are your takeaways. Every time you take a photo, do the 7 steps. They'll get quicker and quicker and shorter until they become 1 step. Like, the more you do it, it'll be, have an idea, do a run-through, pour the liquid in, take the photo. Please edit your photos. Please edit your photos. Stop posting directly to Instagram. Like, oh, God, please edit the photos. Should I say that again? Please edit your photos. Lastly, story structure style. Every photo should have it. A good photo. Not every photo has it, but ideally, story structure style. No light, no photo, so stop taking photographs at 3 o'clock in the morning in a corner of the dark bar. Think geometrically, grid on. 4, have a point of view. Think about how you want to have this image seen. And if you're not sure, do all of them. It's just a case of moving your arm, right? And I think that's my spiel over. You can now rest your brains. Done.
Nice one, buddy.
Oh, nice.
You get a drink?
We've got
Addie,
third
that was
drink as
great.
well.
Yeah, we've got this drink is, and all the drinks, I guess, have been very reflective of the styles of the bartenders behind them. And this one is from Ali. Ali, do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
This is really simple serve. It's a Chivas 12 sour, and we just put a drop of 30 mils of a really nice hoppy dark IPA, and we kind of just poured the Scotch sour over that, so it kind of generally just fills the drink up, gives it a bit more effervescence. Like the hops and obviously the malt play really, really well together, and it kind of just gives it a bit more body and depth. Just really simple take on a whiskey sour.
So we've heard from Addie, who's told us, I guess, more of the professional viewpoint of taking photos. But we do have a plethora of opinions from our panel, and I do want to open this up to any of you that have any questions at all as well. So, Ago, I guess I asked you to come up with some images that you thought appealed to you, and you're going to tell us a little bit about them.
Now, look at one of the drink you have in front of you. Choose one, only one. Now, keep a look at the drink and stand up. Keep looking at the drink. Robbie Williams, in the Dead Poets Society, in the first lesson to the students said, when you think you know something, just look at it from a different perspective. So you know how to make your drink. You are sure that you know about your cocktail, what you want to deliver with this cocktail, with this ingredient, with this story about the drink to your guest. But just try to look at it from the guest. You can sit down, by the way. Try to look at it from the guest's point of view. As Addie said, put the drink a little bit closer. Do a 3/4, which is a boring point of view, which I really like because it's one of my photos on the right-hand side. And but also think if you have the garnish. What is the garnish? Where you put the drink in front of the guest. Is on the back of it, is in the front, so it doesn't show the detail of the glass, is on the little bit right side, like at 2 o'clock. So think about those details when you want to take the photo of the cocktail, but it's not just the photo matters, it's how you present the cocktail in front of the guest. The first photo on the left-hand side is the famous martini trolley at a corner bar. It is a straight, but it also is a guest point of view, because the guests are sitting, we have the trolley next to it. It's an action shot, really. You don't need even to say it's a martini going into the glass, because you know it. There is everything built. It's not even built up. It's a candid photography. It's a natural shot of a situation. And the light is a natural light. We have light coming through the window in the daytime in the corner bar. And it's all about it. It's something has to be so simple to deliver really what is the personality of the cocktail, I would like to say, and as the guest would like to see it in the real environment. So that when you design a drink and when you take photo of the drink, it needs to really fit what is it about. Is in your bar? Is in a tiki bar? Is in a studio, so you want to do a photo for a campaign? There's different options you need to consider. The second photo in the middle one is really a setup photo of something that I really like to play with garnishes and color the drink. So we have the dark color, the very deep brown color of the cocktail with a contrast of the gold edible paint and the golden twill with the bee pollen into it. So it's as well how you align the different shapes I use the different color into designing a cocktail that needs to come through the photography. I really like the simplicity to use a white background and a little bit of lighting, which I borrowed, to really give this a little bit of impact shot, without really giving any extra information of what is around it. And also you can use some simple details, like the coffee beans in the last photo on the right-hand side, to let a little bit of the message come through. What is the cocktail there? It's something, of course, it's whiskey-based, it's Chivas based, because today we designed another cocktail for Max. It's based on a classic cocktail. What is it? It's a morning cocktail. It's a kind of bamboo fortified with some Chivas. Yeah, it's a coffee bean, so it's still deep, elegant, and you feel the creaminess of the cocktail as well because the golden color which is there, and everything is embraced a little bit by the beautiful mirror tray. It's a Chivas-based cocktail with Kona coffee beans, as you probably know, Hawaiian prestigious coffee infused in dry vermouth, so you have the both acidity of the two ingredients coming through, and a little bit of color come through from the Chivas and Oloroso sherry for body as well. And that's it. Sometimes you really need to rethink what you think, rethink what you know. So make your cocktail, put it there, but also just don't take the drink and put it in a different way. As Eddie said, do so because he's a professional and knows better how to do. But also move yourself around. Where does it look better? Where the guest is sitting? Which side of the table? Is he going to look at the window? Or it doesn't matter, to make the cocktail come through.
Can I just say something very quickly on that point? Another rule of thumb I always forget. Don't use the fucking Zoom function on your phone. Okay? On that topic, because I meant to say earlier and I forgot, if you want to zoom in, that's your zoom function. Please. Don't. It just crops your sensor and you get shit images.
Yeah.
I just forgot to say that. Thank you.
Hell.
Yeah,
Can you explain why, Addie?
Also, if you look at Agro's images, it's really interesting that the one on the left is your lifestyle human, the one in the middle is your abstract minimal, and the one on your right is your props only still life. You've also got 3 different points of view, and hopefully you've now all seen quite how perfect the grid functions in that photograph on all of them.
Just them now. Also, the last little point, you're like a beautiful dress-up model with fantastic dress, and there are 2 options here. Or is a dress publicity, like Dolce & Gabbana or Armani, because it's classy, it's elegant, it's vibrant, or is the personality of the model that you want to highlight, isn't it? There's 2 different options. So in our case, what we want to do, we want to highlight the personality of the cocktail. So you need to dress up everything around it to let this one come in through. Not just take every bits and bobs around because Eddie said to use the darkness here and the bright color there. No, everything needs to have a sense. So think about your cocktail is like the center of attention, is like the model, and you need to let the personality come in through. And make sure that the taste is very nice. Otherwise, everything is diluted a little bit in the bartending process. Yeah. Thank you, Max.
Thanks, Ago. So, thanks, Ago. Ago is one of the best hosts, bartenders, but also a very keen photographer. So the eye that he has is very important. But I'd now like to ask Tara, who works in hospitality, but also is now moved into becoming a stylist, to talk about some drinks that she's highlighted. I'll just put them up here. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, 3 images here. First one, blue one, that was shot for Grey Goose. That was in a location house in Dalston. We wanted to make it look like a bar. We were actually in someone's front room. Took us about 3.5 hours to get that shot. That was me making the drink about 5 times because we were just moving props around, moving lighting around. You had about 6 different lights on that. The middle shot, that was in the basement of White Lion. This shoot, originally, we weren't going to have the drink in it. Ryan and Ian said, we don't want to have the drinks in the shot. We want to get a sense of what the drinks are. So it was going to be a lot more like the beefeater image that you have there. But then they changed the brief. but we wanted to go away from this idea of hearing the drink quite as much and give an understanding of how props can be playful and do the complete opposite of what I normally do when I get onto a shoot, which is think like a bartender, think about the principles that I've learnt in my history in hospitality and try and apply those to the set. But when I started working, I was told, don't say you're a bartender. Don't mention it at all. This is a completely different discipline. And I've tried to find a sort of balance between the two systems. It's a strange thing to walk on and think about all the drinks photography you've seen in the past. Like, I remember looking at images in books that I first bought when I was a bartender and thought, that can look better. Like, the ice cube looks dark. The wash line isn't right, and you look at it and you get frustrated. It's like when I see drinks images within general media. You flick through the magazine on the weekends and you're like, yeah, but why? That's I know I can make that better, and that's what I'm trying to bring onto a shoot when I'm there. But it's the same thing when you're taking a picture in a bar. If you just apply, as Addie said earlier, apply the principles of the way that you make drinks to the aesthetics of that one shot that you're trying to do. And so, yeah, the blue background image, that was, sorry, it's a grasshopper. Normally, I would try and make it look super chilled, but we wanted to go for something, we wanted to give an understanding that the opacity of the drink was a sort of feature of it, make it look snow white. It took us about 5 hours to spray paint all of those vegetables. That was a lot of fun with a white line. The back of the bar outside in the car park, they'll forever be pink there. But then the beef eater image. This was 2 shots a day, and we shot for 5 days. So in total, we covered off 5 drinks, which might seem crazy, but the amount of time it takes to, even when you have a brief, it's just a vague concept. It will be, these are the ingredients of the drink, how are we going to position everything? So you then work up a plan for every ingredient, you then divide it, you then start culling stuff, and no, that doesn't work. Okay, recut the orange or the grapefruit that way. And then you take the shot and the client will go, yes, but what about this? So essentially what my job is just endless repetition and trying to refine something and adapting to what people want, which is what we all do, but in a very, very minute way. So you might get to the end of a day and you've covered off all the shots, but then turns out that actually the garnish isn't quite the right place, or there should have been a bottle in that shot. So you just have to be prepared to take everything you've learned as a bartender and have patience, and then try and apply that patience to the shoot environment, while still trying to drive your own aesthetic voice, but still respect the photographer. These shots are all with different photographers. So the blue shot was with Rob Lawson, who I've worked with now for 5 or 6 years. The middle shot was with a guy called Vic Frankowski, who actually used to be a regular at Happiness Forgets. That's how I got to know him. And then we said, let's do a shoot together, and that was for Drink Up London as well. So you can see that the style is similar to the style that Addie curated for the magazine. But I think the point of this is, for me, that was definitely an influence for what we were doing, but it's about the style of the client. So we're adapting to that. We're not just trying to ape someone else's work. It's about thinking about what's best for the brand. And then the brief for Beef Eater was something very clean, very minimal. This was actually for a series of stop motion animations. So everything you see there, we dressed the whole set, and then we removed the elements one by one, which obviously for the tea was not so easy to do. But it was the process of shoot a frame, take one image away, shoot another frame, take another image away, shoot another frame, take another image away. If anything moved, we were screwed, because for the retouching purposes, everything has to be right there. And that's also another part of my job, making sure everything is as clean as possible. There are no fingerprints. There are, no little. I need to do as much as I can to save time in post-production. I am the barrier against a bigger retouching cost in the end. So part of my job is to maintain the budget of a shoot, and do my utmost to make everyone else's life as easy as possible, because it's easier to correct something in the moment on set than it is to then pay somebody to zoom right into an image and remove dust. So yeah, that's a sort of brief summary of what I do and how it fits in. It's a lot more different to just being a bartender making drinks than I thought it would be. So if that makes sense.
Cool. Okay. Speaking to Alex when he was at the Artesian, and I think it would have been your third menu, the Dali-inspired menu. Was that the third one? Maybe the fourth one. And he had each of the cocktails listed, and he had hashtags next to each of them with different associations or emotions or how they'd make you feel. And I remember him saying to me that he would measure the success of the drink not on the sales, but on the amount of hits or the associations that they received on social media. So Alex, all-encompassing, creative, drinks maker, but also very much the stylist at the same time as well. So Alex, if you would mind telling us a little bit about some drinks and a little bit about, I guess from your perspective, about how, how to take better drinks.
They've been all wondering why they got unemployed bartender at the seminar. When I was having the chat about this talk with Max, he thought it would be good if I talk a little bit about working in a position of bartender with photographers, because these are not pictures I have taken. I actually have no idea how to take pictures properly. That's why I came and learned so much today. But there's few things which we as a bartenders can do to be meeting those budgets or getting most out of them. And this is like a few things which I think as a bartender, if you do, you're gonna get the best pictures for your money. A lot of bartenders tend to be, from my experience, taking the shoots very easily. It's like something you have to do, and it's kind of annoying because you have your meetings and schedule going on. But I think what really helps in the first place is to sort of set up a meeting with Addie or photographer. It's not always possible, but sometimes it just helps simply to jump on the call or, grab a coffee together for 5 minutes, because it gives the photographer an idea about what you want to do. Most of you been before for a cocktail competition, and you know how important it is to bring everything. So for the photo shoot, you really need to do a call sheet, especially if you are shooting 20 drinks menu. It's surprising how our brain works, 6 o'clock in the morning after 18-hour shift. We do tend to forget. So the call sheet really helps yourself, but also the photographer, and you are getting the most for your money in that shoot. Whenever you shoot one of these fancy pictures, I think what you need to take in consideration is to have multiple service pieces, because often you need to swap glass, and washing, drying, polishing, get rid of dust, readjusting the lighting. This is where you waste your money. So if you're ready with everything lined up, you're shooting faster, either paying less for the shoot or getting more out of the shoot.
Never paying less.
Rehearse, you really need to be prepared. There's nothing more frustrating for a photographer than if your garnish doesn't actually stick in the position you envisage to be having in it. So if you really tried it 50 times and you know it works, it will help the photographer, but also yourself. So it's like in the cocktail comp, the moment it doesn't work, you get stressed, you get under pressure, and then you tend to dismiss it at the end, and you just skip it, and you end up with a bad picture. Looking after the photographer, the better they feel, the better they will perform. So it's nice to be ready, I think, for the photographers. But first and most important to me is you need to be there. If you're doing a photo shoot, you need to cancel your appointment, switch off your mobile, and really focus on being and assisting the photographer and the stylist in there, because it's a two-way transaction. Dust is like the worst enemy, and I learned that over the years that dust can add literally hundreds, if not thousands, pounds on post-production, which you're gonna pick up as a bar owner or bar operator. And then the simple setup, which Addie has touched upon. And my last thing is that you shouldn't be really using stylists in my eyes, because all the great chefs I know, they always insist on plating their dishes themselves or having it done by the sous chefs. It's your style. And I think especially when it comes to Instagram and social media, internet, it's really important to create your own style and understand who's your audience. And you see that there's so many places which get lost online because they don't have their own style, and they end up lost looking like, oh, this looks like a drink from Niger. And this is a situation which happens to a lot of bars. If you simply replicate somebody else's style, you get lost no matter how much or how many amazing photographers you hired. From the point of view Instagram, in my eyes, these 3 pictures are like 3 simple messages. You can really learn from other businesses how to build hype. When we done our beer collaboration, which now gave a rise to a whole series, we use it exactly the same like microbreweries are building a hype. And it's kind of funny because I realized also over the years that some of the highest rated and most famous beers on the internet actually, nobody tasted, because to be able to taste them, you need to be somewhere at a certain time. It's almost like a Supreme clothing, no? So I think it's good to use it to boost the business. We would sell 2 cases of a beer just for a takeaway every day from that. The other part, or what I feel is important to communicate about social media, is that social media is great, but it's only great to communicate what you're really doing. There's a friend of mine in London who found his picture of his drink on somebody else's Instagram. Because the Instagram kind of lends it, makes it very easy just to shoot something which looks cool, and they say, oh yeah, it's a blend of manzanilla with cedarwood syrup, Like, your job needs to be real, like if you're working on a project, they need to be real and they need to represent real things. You're only using the Instagram, the social media as a vehicle to talk about your work. So in the middle, this is a drink which most of you will probably never taste because we made it in Amazonian rainforest, but it's an authentic story. Like, we've been there, we've done that. And to wrap up with the authenticity is probably the last picture, which has been taken, I think, 5 or 6 years ago for a book we've been working on with Simone. And I only published it recently on Instagram because I changed jobs since then. But what you see is the consistency of the style. It's still relevant and it works incredibly well on the social media even today because it has that style and people understand it's from you. So it's like the bottle of Coca-Cola, Addie's favorite, as we understood from today's seminar. Even if you see a broken bottle of Coca-Cola on the floor, you still recognize it's a Coca-Cola. And I think that's the most important when it comes to social media. Thank you.
And then finally, I'd like to ask Ali to come and talk about some drinks and some shots. And I think really from, I guess, the perspective of delivering an experience in all his bars and restaurants, which is completely unpretentious and completely straightforward and completely honest. And I guess you're starting to pick up the ideas of photos and that sort of thing yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3 pictures he's got up here, I've actually kind of taken these straight from my Instagram feed. There are 3 images there, and I'm going to be completely unashamed to say that I operate and I run a business. What I need from photography, I use Addie regularly or for a professional basis for professional photos, but I chose to not put any of those images up here. I want to talk about the actual context of the images and what they're taken and what they're actually trying to represent. And what I'm actually trying to do is sell my product to consumers. The first drink on the left is one from my own personal account. It's a drink I drink more than anything else. It's kind of very, very simple. It's an Americano. I like to drink it more than anything else because it's really low ABV, so you can drink plenty of them in the night and I'll still get up the next day for work. But what am I looking for? I'm looking for likes. I'm looking for exposure. How do I get those things? It's a nice kind of clear but brief description of what I'm actually taking a picture of so people can understand what is actually in the picture. And something we haven't really talked about a lot with regards to use for social media, Addie touched on, is it's advertising. It's free advertising, and who are we communicating to? Who do we want to see that image? So I share that image through my own Facebook channels and stuff, but that also gets loaded with hashtags. And hashtags are great for more personal exposure. What are people looking for? When I'm posting the pictures, I think about what time of day I'm posting. I generally put my pictures up at about 6 o'clock, 6:30 UK time. The prime reason is you get that after-work rush when people are sitting on the tube or on the bus or traveling from somewhere to somewhere, they're finished work. So they're sitting there on their own, kind of scrolling through their phone, doing whatever. 6 o'clock also works in the UK because the East Coast of America, at least, they're running 6 hours behind us. So anyone kind of clicking on hashtag of cocktails or drinks or London, they're kind of looking at those things, that's going to kind of crop up in their feed as well on or around that time. So I'm looking at growing our social media base, growing the consumers, and again, like I said, it's the advert that we're looking at there. So the first image you have on the left, purely and simply, quite straightforward, just one drink. As Eddie kind of said, nice and straight, middle of the picture, that's actually taken on a table in Happiness Forgets. That middle picture, straight on, I think, Addie, what was it you said? It's, what was the image or the angle on that one you said?
You were paying attention.
I know. I was paying attention.
Sort of 3/4 or straight, or... I mean, all the things I said, they're just sort of loose markers to get you to think about things, right? I mean, whatever looks good, move the...
So in that one, we have, again, as Addie was saying, we've got the prop, which is our light source, which is directly above it. The drink kind of straight in the middle, which is completely clear, so the light comes right through. But also talking about the products and the ingredients we're using in that drink. So we're trying to communicate that to our guest. What kind of style, what kind of drinks are we doing, what kind of ingredients are we using. And again, that kind of just tells a story of maybe the rest of the menu is of a kind of similar vein. That third picture there, I've incorporated a gentleman sitting back in the corner there, Naren Young, that was in Singapore 2 weeks ago. Drink front and center, but actually out of focus. So I'm using the person who made me that drink, and that is my story. The story is that Naren was doing a guest shift at Manhattan Bar in Singapore, and the environment and the experiences are kind of what is going on there. So we've gone there, the initial kind of drink on the left, the instance and the ingredients used and the style of the drink, and then the third one kind of more telling a story and an experience of where I was at that particular time. So what we're really trying to achieve at Happiness Forgets is, and for me personally, is we are trying to look to sell a product. And I think some people are maybe sometimes scared to talk about that we are in business. And what do we kind of need to use? And Addie was talking about great examples and ideas of using props and using equipment which you don't have to spend lots and lots of money for, but how imagery is important to sell drinks. We're in a very image-based industry, and as much as Twitter is fantastic with connecting with people, but you want to connect with your consumers, imagery is the way that you can sell your products. So that's kind of where we get to, because we are selling our drinks and selling ourselves. Thank you very much.
Now I guess we've got some time if any of you have any questions. I don't think we've covered everything, but we've certainly started something, we hope.
So first thing when you walk into a bar, if you think you're going to take a photograph is, and we did this when we did your talk, first thing when you walk into a bar is you sort of, clock the light sources. If you can, go when it's a little bit empty so you have a bit of a choice of the area when you walk into.
Eddie, you need to have cash tips to give to the hostess so you can choose the best table.
There you go, that also works.
That's a good tips.
Yeah, well, failing that, clock where your lights are. It doesn't matter what your light is, right? It doesn't matter if it's a window, if it's a candle, if it's a lamp on the bar. I think it was a shot from the bar at Distillery when it launched. And the first thing you do to walk in is you go, okay, I'm going to have to take a photo to talk about it. Where is there a light? What's really annoying is when you sit down at a table and then you go, oh, I've sat down at a table, I've got a great drink, now where can I find a light? Light comes first. No light, no photo. And then if you've got a light in a bar, I would say incorporate it into the photo. Like Ali, I see so many nice Instagram photos from Happiness Forgets with a candle lit. And you kind of do it naturally, right? You sort of, there's your drink. And that's called that a candle. And you sort of move the candle in around and see how it's going to look best and pop that in there. The most important thing you want is glow within the drink. You want your drink to glow. If you want to incorporate the environment around it, I love the middle shot of Ali's. It's a thing I didn't talk about, is that giving your glass space is a very nice thing. I see a lot of crop drinks where you lose the top and bottom of the drink and it doesn't look great. Give your drink space. And the other advantage of doing that is you can use more of the bar, and generally bars are really beautifully designed. And part of beautiful design is usually what you light with. So therefore, if you find a nice light and you give your drink a bit of room, you've usually got a pretty light you can use. So I think first tip is find the light, sit down by the light, then order a drink. Always. Normally sit at the bar, because often bar stations are the most lit spots in a bar, because they're working, obviously. Like if you sit, again, happiness is a good example. If you sit in one of the back corners in one of the desks, the tables opposite the bar, A, you can't talk to the lovely bar staff. B, there's no light. I've never managed to get a nice photo off one of those tables. But the table just to the left of the front door, those of you who've been there, it's got a great big light over the top of it, gold dust. Or go and sit at the bar, because there's all the light where they're working. So I generally take most photos sitting at the bar, for me. Also, service is faster, I can drink more, it's like an efficiency
Eddie,
thing.
do you suggest as a quick light
The torch on your
sources?
phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that later on if there's time. I mean, any light you can get is good. So on your phones, you've got a torch, right? It's very dark in here, so it doesn't make a difference. There's a torch. I mean, the issues with it, A, it's really blue. The light off your phone is really blue, so it will color things. Again, if we get time, we can talk about gels and stuff. What's nice as a solution, if you need to, is you can bounce your light off a bit of card. That's a nice save. If you are with somebody and they've got an iPad or one of those ridiculously oversized phones, that's usually a good size to light a glass. You can get apps and do it, but if you just have your screen on full brightness with a white image, that makes a nice mini softbox. It's a bit hard and fast. It's never going to be rolling in with $5,000 of lighting equipment and a photographer with 3 assistants, but it's better than the shit photo with the light that's on the other side of the bar, you can't see anything. So I wouldn't recommend it, but then push comes to shove, it depends how important it is. Another really good tip, if you take that photo and the photo's shit, just don't post it. Right? Go on their website, find a really nice image, and copy that. Or do what, like I just put one up of me with a glass going like that, and it's about the occasion. It's not a great, no offense, it's not a great looking serve at the moment. It's like a half-filled wine glass that's gone a bit fluffy because I haven't had it. But what I'm selling is the occasion of being here. So maybe that shot of the drink there wouldn't look great, but find something that does. I see a lot of nice photos outside Happiness Forgets in the entrance area, because you've got lights, and there's street lights. Chase the light, and if the photo's shit, bin it.
Great.
Any more questions?
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I currently kind of run and manage 4 Instagram accounts. So, I mean, I have people kind of take pictures in the individual businesses. So, I mean, I have one for each of my venues, which is Original Sin, Happiness Forgets, and Petit Pois, and then I have my own personal one. And I do kind of personally struggle with what pictures have I taken, which account do I post them to. I think it's really important that you do remember that you are not your bar. Especially kind of if you're employed by the bar. If you own it, I think it's a slightly different kettle of fish. But if you are trying to kind of promote your personal self, it's again, I think it's more about experience and kind of sharing those experiences. And it doesn't always just have to be drinks. To find that kind of blend with regards to the actual business, again, actually, your customers come in for an experience. I mean, we are in the business of bars. Yeah, we're here at Tales of the Cocktail and we all drink cocktails, this is true, but we're actually selling, from my opinion, I think we're actually selling an experience. You can go into the world's best bars making the best drinks, but maybe the bar isn't the best bar in the world. So if you're trying, I think, sell that business one of my most popular shots on Instagram for both Original Sin, Petit Pois, and Happiness Forgets is actually not of a drink. It's actually of the environment that's happening right now. So you catch kind of like half a bartender pouring a shot, and there's like a group of customers or guests at the bar, or a shot kind of straight down the bar. And that sells the bar to a customer. It's not just talking about your product, but it's like you kind of capture the environment of the venue in the photo itself. And I find those really, really important. So as a business, I try to not just post pictures of drinks or products or food. It's trying to encapsulate that environment you can. But separating the two is always kind of really tricky. I think if for yourself, you have to kind of be yourself.
Can I chip in on that as well? This came up in one of the talks that happened in Paris for Paul. I think Nick Strangeway said it. I think he said his point was about bartenders get very into themselves, no offense. By which I mean you go off and all you do is you read history of drinks, and then you read some more things about drinks, and then you talk to each other about drinks, and then a customer comes in and you talk at them about their drink. And a lot of the time, all a customer really wants to do is to have the drink and not have you talk to them about their drink, right? His message to you all was, go and read books about other stuff. Like, find a hobby.
Yeah.
Get into architecture and travel. The same applies to your photo feeds. Bars are different. I get that. You're selling an environment and drinks. Bartenders, you're human beings. You have a life. You eat food, you go traveling, you play sports, maybe not always your running route, because that gets as tiresome, but like, you have a pet, you have a partner, you have friends. That is also really nice to see on your Instagram, because it is social media. I know we say it's advertising, but break it up a bit. Otherwise it gets boring and people stop following you. I think Alex's account is awesome. I really enjoy it. Partly because the amount of traveling he does and the weird shit he gets up to. It's nice to see that. Like, he could keep quiet and just go, drink, 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 drink. By the way, I'm doing all this cool stuff. But he doesn't. He goes, here's where I am. Here's who I'm with. Here's what we're up to. What's going on? I think that's how you should all have your accounts. Please.
Time's up, but we are going to set up a little display down here. So if any of you do have any more questions or you want to come and see something done live, please stay with us. For the rest of you, thank you very much for taking the time to come and join us. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Chivas Regal and PR UK, Pernod Ricard UK, and also for our amazing panelists who've given us the time to come and talk about their experiences and share their knowledge. So thank you very much.